Why did my daughter's nosebleeds lead to what we found in the well? My daughter Jenny started getting nosebleeds that wouldn't stop, and what I found trying to fix them still haunts me. She was 7 when it started, right after we moved into the house in March. Sometimes 4 times a day, bright red blood streaming down her face while she cried and begged me to make it stop. I felt so helpless watching her suffer. The doctor cauterized a blood vessel and promised it would work, but it didn't stop anything. The bleeding kept happening day after day. What scared me most was it only happened at home, never at school or anywhere else. One morning I heard Jenny scream from the kitchen. Blood was pouring between her fingers and splashing all over the table. My heart was pounding as I grabbed paper towels, but it wouldn't stop. After 15 minutes, I snatched my keys, ready to rush her to the emergency room. But the instant we stepped outside onto the driveway, it just stopped, like someone flipped a switch. I stood there shaking, staring at my daughter's blood-crusted face. My husband put his hand on my shoulder. "Maybe it's just stress," he said softly. "Kids get nosebleeds all the time." I spun around and looked at him. 16 times in 1 week? That's not normal. Something is seriously wrong. We paid $800 to have professionals clean every air vent in the house. The next morning, another nosebleed. I was desperate and terrified. I demanded a specialist run every possible test. Blood work, allergy panels, iron levels, everything. It all came back completely normal. I started questioning my own sanity. One night I was at the sink doing dishes and noticed the water coming out looked slightly murky. I filled a glass and forced myself to taste it. The second it touched my tongue, I spit it into the sink. It tasted like I was licking rust. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called the city water department. The inspector showed up Tuesday morning with his testing equipment. He ran the water and filled his little vials. I watched all the color drain from his face as he read the results. My stomach dropped. He ran outside to check our water meter. When he came back inside, he looked genuinely terrified and said, "Ma'am, you're not connected to city water." He started frantically searching our backyard for the source. I followed right behind him, my heart racing. He found it within an hour, buried in the back corner under thick weeds and a sheet of rusted metal. The opening was barely 2 feet across. He tied a flashlight to a rope and slowly lowered it down into the darkness. We both leaned over the edge to look inside. The smell that came up made me gag violently. It was rotten eggs mixed with something sickly sweet. The water far below was pitch black and looked thick. He pulled his shirt up over his face. "This well is pumping poison straight into your house," he said. "Your daughter has been drinking this." A city crew arrived early the next morning with massive pumps. I was pacing back and forth across my yard the entire time, watching them pump out hour after hour of thick contaminated water. Around noon, one of the workers approached me, his face pale and hands visibly shaking. "You need to call the police right now," he told me, his voice cracking. He wouldn't tell me why. I ran to the well and aimed my flashlight down into the opening. At the bottom, in a shallow pool of remaining water, dozens of small fish were swimming in frantic circles. My entire body went cold. Police officers climbed down into the well with their equipment and lights. I stood at the edge, barely breathing. One officer suddenly froze in place. They stayed down there for what felt like forever. My legs felt weak. When they finally climbed up, they were pulling something behind them on a rope, a complete human skeleton, still dressed in the rotting remains of a jacket. I grabbed onto my husband's arm to keep myself from collapsing. The bones were stained dark from years sitting in that contaminated water. Then they hauled up buckets full of those fish. A detective walked over to me holding one in a clear plastic bag. "It's a piranha," he said quietly. "Someone installed an air pump down there too." I felt like I was going to pass out. They told me the body had been there for at least 8 years. There was no identification, no dental match, nothing in any database. I kept thinking about Jenny drinking that water every single day for months. The well didn't even exist on any maps. The previous owner died 3 years ago alone. The detective shook his head. "I can't explain any of this," he said. Then an officer called him back. Minutes later, he showed me his phone. Someone had carved one word deep into the stone: "Saved."